Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are walking into a room that I think many of us have been in, or at least we've stood just outside the door of, wondering what was going on inside. And it is a room that is, well, it's confusing, it's disorienting, and for many people it is deeply, profoundly painful.
It's a room where the acoustics are all wrong.
What do you mean by that?
You speak, but you don't hear your own voice back, or if you do, it's distorted. You only hear the echo of the person in charge.
Right.
And eventually you stop speaking altogether.
Right.
Because you start to doubt if you even have a voice.
That is a terrifying image to start with, losing your own voice. But before we get into the heavy analysis, I want to start with a thought experiment.
Okay.
I want you, the listener, to just pause. Whatever you're doing, unless you're driving, please keep your eyes on the road. But mentally, I want you to step into a specific scenario.
Let's do it.
Imagine a vibrant, growing church. Or, maybe it's a high-impact nonprofit or a mission organization. Something with a moral center.
Something that feels important.
Exactly. But let's stick with the church for a moment, because the stakes, they just feel higher there.
The aesthetics are probably perfect.
Oh, absolutely. The music is transcendent. It swells at just the right moments.
Thanks, bumps.
The sermons are electric. They make you feel something you haven't felt in years. And the community, it feels tight-knit, like a family. You walk in and you think, finally, this is it. This is where the real work is happening.
It feels like a destination. You've arrived. It feels like the place where truth with a capital T is finally happening.
Yes, exactly. And then the record scratch.
Oh.
A single voice speaks up. Maybe it's a staff member who's been there for 5 years. Maybe it's a longtime congregant, someone everyone knows.
Someone credible.
Right. And they claim that they were bullied or manipulated or spiritually abused by that beloved electric leader.
Okay.
Now, pause there. In a normal, healthy system, like, I don't know, a local PTA meeting or a healthy workplace, you'd expect curiosity.
You'd expect some questions, at least.
Yeah, right. You'd expect someone to say, whoa, that sounds really serious. Let's look into this. Are you okay?
But that is not what happens in the scenario we're discussing today.
No.
In this scenario, the reaction is not curiosity. It is a sudden, coordinated silence.
It's like a blast door slammed shut. I've seen this happen. And the truth, quote unquote, gets reframed instantly.
Suddenly.
That accuser. They aren't a victim. Suddenly, they are divisive.
Or unstable.
Unstable, bitter. Or, my favorite, they're attacking God's anointed.
That's the big one.
And the community, this group of people dedicated to love and truth, instinctively chooses to protect the power structure over the person every time.
And that brings us to the destabilizing question of this deep dive. This isn't just about why one leader might be a jerk.
No.
The real question is, how does a community dedicated to truth become so effective at suppressing it? How does a system built on love become a machine that crushes the vulnerable?
So we're calling this Christian narcissism today, and this is a huge disclaimer right at the top, because I know people get defensive about this word. We are not here to diagnose your pastor with a personality disorder.
Absolutely not.
We aren't here to gossip about the latest megachurch scandal or, read from the DSM-5.
Precisely. If we make this about bad apples or clinical narcissists, we miss the point entirely. You can fire a bad apple, but what if the barrel itself is toxic?
Then the next apple will rot, too.
Exactly. We have to look at this through a structural lens. We're exploring Christian narcissism not as a clinical label for a bad person, but as a crisis of witness.
A crisis of witness.
It is a collapse of attention inside a moral system.
A crisis of witness. That feels really different than how we usually talk about this. Usually it's just, oh, that guy have an ego problem. You're saying it's a systemic blindness.
It's a collapse of the feedback loops that allow us to see reality. It's what happens when a system is designed to only see what validates it. It literally loses the ability to perceive anything else.
Okay, to do that, to really unpack that, we have built a really eclectic stack of sources today. And frankly, some of these are going to stretch us. We aren't just reading pop psychology blogs. We are pulling from the systems theory and recursive coherence models of Mark and Solaria Havens.
That's our mainframe.
Right. We're also looking at the philosophy of Simone Weil, specifically her concepts of gravity and grace.
Which are just mind-bending.
Totally. We've got the cybernetics and epistemology of Gregory Bateson, which is going to be a trip.
It will be, but it's so worth it.
The theology of Jürgen Moltmann, the psychology of Chuck DeGroat, and even some social commentary from Eric Hoffer.
It sounds like a lot, I know, but they all converge on this one idea.
Which is what?
Narcissism, in this context, is what happens when a system loses its ability to receive feedback. It becomes a closed loop.
A closed loop where God is used to validate the self rather than dismantle it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the chilling thesis we are working toward today is this. The most dangerous systems aren't evil because they are cruel. They are evil because they no longer see.
Okay, let's unpack this. I want to start with this core idea of witness. When you say Christian narcissism is a failure of witness, I think most people's minds go to a courtroom.
Right, a legal witness.
Or maybe witnessing to a stranger on the street, handing out tracts.
Right, and we need to completely reclaim and redefine that word for this discussion.
So what does it mean here?
In the context of the Soul Print Protocol and the work of Mark and Celeria Havens, witnessing isn't about speaking at someone.
Okay.
It is a form of recursive attention. It is a physics of connection.
Recursive attention. You're already throwing the jargon at me. Break that down for me. What does recursive actually mean in terms of human relationships?
Okay, fair enough. Think about a tennis match. A really good one.
Right.
You hit the ball to me. I don't just stand there. I see the ball. I see it spin. I adjust my stance, my grip, and I hit it back to you.
And then I do the same.
Right. You see my return, you adjust, and you hit it back. That back and forth, that is recursion. It's a loop where the output of one side becomes the input for the other, and it refines and changes with every pass.
Okay, so it's basically a conversation.
It's deeper than a conversation. The Havens model argues that intelligence, even your soul, are not things contained inside your skull like marbles in a jar.
Wait, what?
I know, it's a big idea. They argue that these things are circuits. They are emergent field architectures.
Okay, that's a mouthful.
It just means that I don't fully exist as a me without the feedback loop of a you. We become a we through these loops of mutual recognition.
Hold on, that sounds a little abstract. Are you saying if I'm alone on a desert island, I don't exist? Or that I don't have a soul unless someone is looking at me?
Not that you don't exist, but that your capacity to know yourself is profoundly dependent on being known by another.
How so?
Think about a baby. A baby learns who they are by looking into their mother's face. If the mother smiles, the baby learns, I am delightful. If the mother looks frightened or angry, the baby learns, I am scary or I am bad. The baby's very identity is formed in that recursive loop.
So the mother's face is a mirror.
It's more than a mirror. It's a co-creator. That living, co-created pattern is what the Havens call the soul print. It's not a static identity card you carry in your wallet. It's a living field between people.
So in a healthy relationship, whether it's a marriage, a friendship, or a church, we are constantly printing each other. We're co-creating each other in real time.
Exactly. When I truly witness you, I am allowing your reality to impact mine. I am letting your signal literally change my frequency.
That's a very vulnerable position to be in.
It's incredibly vulnerable. It's an open loop. I am saying you are real, you are separate from me, and your experience matters to my experience.
Okay, so that's the healthy version. That's the WE. Now, let's apply this to the toxic church system we're talking about. What happens when that tennis match stops working?
That is where we get what the Havens call narcissistic coupling.
Narcissistic coupling, okay.
Imagine that tennis match again. But this time, every time you hit the ball to me, I don't hit it back to you. I catch it, I write my name on it, and I hold it up for everyone to see.
So I get nothing back.
Or worse, I just put up a wall. You hit the ball, and it just bounces back at you, completely unchanged by me.
So there's no exchange, it's just me hitting a wall.
There is no exchange. The paper describes it as a pattern where oneself's mirror dominates the recursive field.
Dominates the field.
So mutual resonance, that beautiful tennis match, it turns into performative validation.
Explain performative validation. That sounds like a key concept.
It means I am no longer looking at you. I am looking at you to see if you are reflecting me back to myself correctly.
You're just using me as a mirror.
A very specific kind of mirror. If I'm a narcissistic leader, I don't actually want to know your struggles, your ideas, or your theological questions. I want to know one thing.
What's that?
Do you think I'm anointed? Do you think I'm powerful? Do you see me the way I need to be seen?
Have you ever talked to someone at a party and you can just tell they are not listening? They're just waiting for you to stop talking so they can finish their story.
Yes, exactly that. But now, scale that up to a theology. Make it the operating system for a whole community.
That's horrifying.
It is. It's like a microphone getting too close to a speaker. You know that high-pitched screeching sound?
Feedback. Yeah, it's painful.
That happens because the loop is too tight. It's just the same signal amplifying itself over and over again until it drowns out everything else in the room.
So the leader's voice is the microphone.
And the congregation becomes the speaker. That is a perfect analogy for the narcissistic church system. The leader's voice, the I, becomes the only signal in the room.
And the congregation stops being a separate thou with their own perspectives, their own soul prints.
They just become the amplifier, making the leader's voice louder. And that beautiful, complex we, it collapses into a giant screeching I.
This is really disturbing, because if I'm in the pew, I might think I'm part of a movement. I might think we are all singing the same song because we love God.
Right.
But you're saying structurally, I might just be an amplifier for one person's ego.
Here's a test. If you cannot disagree without being exiled, you are an amplifier, not a participant.
And if you try to speak into that, if you try to introduce a new frequency, say, hey, I'm hurting, or hey, this doesn't seem right to me.
You are noise. You
Right.
are interference. You are static.
Yeah.
And the system is designed from the ground up to eliminate interference to protect the clarity of the leader's signal.
This helps explain why it can feel so lonely in those churches, even when you're surrounded by 1,000 people singing.
Because you aren't being seen. You're being used.
You're being used as acoustic tiling.
Or as a mirror. And this is why we call it a failure of witness.
Yeah.
The leader has lost the capacity to witness the reality of the other.
And then eventually.
The congregation loses the capacity to witness the reality of the victim. They literally cannot see the harm because the system's feedback loop is tuned only to the leader's frequency. Anything else is just static to be filtered out.
But this leads to the question that always haunts me, and I think it haunts anyone who has watched this happen from the inside or the outside.
Mm-hmm.
Why do the nice people stay? I'm talking about the sweet old lady who baits casseroles for every potluck,
Right.
or the guy who helps you move your couch on a Saturday. They aren't narcissists. They're kind.
Right.
But when the abuse comes out, when the allegations drop, they side with the bully. They attack the victim. Why don't they see it? Are they brainwashed?
Brainwashed is too lazy a term, I think.
How so?
It suggests they're zombies, that they have no agency. They
Mhm.
aren't zombies. They are caught in a structural trap. And this is where we have to bring in Gregory Bateson.
Gregory Bateson, the anthropologist and cyberneticist. This is a bit of a pivot from church dynamics, but you think he's key here.
I think he's essential because Bateson obsessed over how systems know things. And he argued that a lot of what we call pathology or even evil actually comes from epistemological error.
Epistemological error. Okay, that's a $10 phrase. Break it down.
It just means a mistake in how we know what we know, a mistake in how we map reality.
So our map is wrong.
Your map of the world is flawed.
Mm-hmm.
Bateson had this famous dialogue with his daughter about muddles. He talked about how we put things in categories to make life manageable. But sometimes our categories get crossed in a way that blinds us.
Can you give us an example of a muddle in this church context? How does a category error make me blind to abuse?
Sure. Let's look at the category of faithfulness. In a healthy system, faithfulness might mean adhering to truth and loving your neighbor as yourself. A pretty good definition.
Yeah, sounds biblical.
But in a narcissistic system, the category of faithfulness gets muddled. It gets tangled up with loyalty to the leader. They become the same thing.
Oh, wow. I see where this is going.
So, what happens?
So, if I criticize the leader because he was cruel to someone, the system doesn't categorize that as me seeking truth. It categorizes it as unfaithfulness.
Exactly. Or rebellion, or gossip,
Yeah.
or sowing discord. Your act of seeking justice is put in the wrong box. And once it's in that box, it's impossible to see it for what it is.
It's a double bind. That's Bateson's term, right?
Yes. He talks about this constantly.
Yeah.
A double bind is a situation where you are presented with two conflicting demands, and you can't step out of the frame to critique them. You're damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Give me a concrete example of a double bind for, say, a staff member at this hypothetical church.
Okay. Demand A is preached from the pulpit every Sunday. You must love God and hate sin.
Standard stuff.
Demand B is the unspoken rule, the cultural assumption. This leader is God's anointed, and to question him is to question God.
Okay, I see the conflict coming.
The double bind happens when the leader commits a clear sin, an act of cruelty, a financial impropriety, whatever.
So what are my choices?
Well, if you point out the sin, you're obeying demand A, right? You're hating sin, but you are attacking God's anointed, so you're violating demand B.
And I'll get fired.
And you'll get fired. But if you ignore the sin to protect the leader, you're obeying demand B, but you are tolerating sin, which violates demand A.
So you're trapped. You can't win.
You are paralyzed. And usually, the way people solve a double bind is by denial. They simply refuse to see the sin. They edit reality in their own minds so they don't have to make an impossible choice.
That is a brain breaker. It creates a cognitive short circuit.
It does. And Bateson would look at this cybernetically. He loved thermostats.
Thermostats?
Yeah, think about how a thermostat works. It keeps a room stable by relying on negative feedback.
Negative feedback sounds bad, like a bad performance review.
We think of it that way, but in cybernetics, negative feedback is essential. It's corrective data. If the room gets too hot, the thermostat sends a signal that says, error, too hot. That too hot signal is the negative feedback.
And the AC kicks in to cool it down.
Precisely. It keeps the system stable and healthy. Without negative feedback, the system goes off the rails.
So in a church, negative feedback would be, hey, pastor, that joke you told was really offensive, or, hey, the budget numbers you presented don't seem to add up.
Correct. It's any data that challenges the current state of things. Now, a narcissistic system hates negative feedback. It perceives correction as an attack.
An attack on the glittering image.
Yes. So what does it do? It can't handle the too hot signal, so it cuts the wire to the thermostat.
It stops listening.
It stops listening structurally. It fires the people who ask the hard questions. It exiles the families that raise concerns. It creates a culture where any kind of negativity is spiritualized as the enemy or a lack of faith.
And then the furnace just keeps running and running.
Until the whole house burns down. But here's the key, and this is what makes it so tragic. So much more than just a story of a villain. The people inside the house don't realize the thermostat is gone.
They just think they're being positive.
They think they're keeping the unity. They think they're protecting the vision.
They think they're ignoring the haters.
Exactly. They don't see that by filtering out the victim's pain, which is the negative feedback, it's the too hot signal, they're actually destroying the system's ability to self-correct.
It's like driving a car at 100 miles per hour and painting over the windshield because you don't like the look of the traffic.
That's a great analogy. The blindness isn't necessarily malicious, not at first. It's structural. The system has been designed to filter out the very data that would save it.
Honestly, that makes me feel a little more compassion for the enablers in the story. They're stuck in a broken machine.
Compassion is good, but we also need clarity. Because someone built that machine. Someone cut those wires.
Which brings us to the architects. We have to talk about the leaders themselves. And let's pivot to Chuck DeGroat's book, When Narcissism Comes to Church. It is a heavy read, but so necessary.
It is.
He has some stats in there that are, well, they aren't great.
No, they are not. DeGroat points out that in studies of personality profiles, ministerial candidates often test significantly higher on the cluster B spectrum than the general population.
Cluster B. Just to remind everyone, that's the dramatic, emotional, erratic cluster, right? So we're talking about narcissism, histrionic personality.
Right. Now, we have to be incredibly careful here. Not every pastor is a narcissist. I want to be very, very clear about that. There are thousands of humble, wonderful, healthy leaders out there.
Of course.
But DeGroat asks a very uncomfortable question, and it's one we have to sit with. He asks, who else wants to speak on behalf of God every week?
Oof. Yeah, when you put it that way.
Think about the structure of it. The stage, the lights, the undisputed authority. You hold the microphone for 45 minutes, completely uninterrupted.
No one can fact check you in real time. No one can raise their hand and say, actually.
Exactly. DeGroat borrows a phrase from the novelist Susan Howatch, the glittering image. Ministry offers the ultimate glittering image. You aren't just a guy with a speech. You are positioned as the mouthpiece of the divine.
Okay, but let me play devil's advocate here for a second.
Please.
Don't we need charismatic leaders? If I'm going to church, I don't want to listen to someone mumble at their shoes for half an hour. I want vision. I want passion. Isn't there a fine line between a narcissist and just a really effective, strong leader?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it? And I think the difference lies in the loop we talked about earlier.
Okay.
A strong, healthy leader has vision, yes, but they're also permeable.
Permeable, meaning they can be changed by the people they lead. They're not a brick wall.
Yes, they can receive signal. A healthy leader says, follow me. But they also say, how are we doing? And they actually listen to the answer. They allow the thermostat to function.
And the narcissistic leader?
A narcissistic leader says, follow me. And if you ask, where are we going? They say, why don't you trust God?
Ah, the God card, the ultimate shutdown.
The ultimate trump card. And this is where DeGroat's observations intersect so perfectly with Eric Hoffer.
Right, Hoffer, from The True Believer.
Yes. He wrote it back in the 1950s. He wasn't writing about the church specifically. He was writing about mass movements, political, social, religious, all of them.
What was his big insight?
He argued that people join these movements not necessarily because they believe in the truth of the doctrine, but because they want to lose their own individual inadequacy in a holy cause.
They want to merge with something big to feel significant.
Or even just to disappear. They want to be part of the anointed group,
Yeah.
the special church, the one that is really doing it right, unlike all those lukewarm, compromised churches down the street.
I felt that. I have. That buzz of being on the winning team. It feels good.
It's intoxicating. But that buzz requires a leader who is absolutely certain. If the leader says, I think God might be saying this, but let's pray and discern together, that doesn't give you the buzz.
That requires work from me. That requires me to think.
Exactly. But if the leader stands up and says, God told me this is the way, you can just surrender. You can turn off your critical thinking and just float on the river of their certainty.
So if I question that leader, I'm not just questioning a man. I'm popping the bubble of our specialness. I'm ruining the high for everyone.
You are threatening the collective ego, the collective glittering image. And that is why the God card is so structurally lethal. When a leader says, God told me, or God gave me this vision, they are effectively closing the recursive loop.
Because you can't argue with God. There's no tennis match with God.
There is no room for the thou to respond. In that moment, it becomes what Martin Buber would call an I-it relationship. I speak as God, you listen as an object.
It masquerades as spiritual authority.
But structurally, it is a shutdown of witness. It is the end of the conversation.
And if you try to reopen the conversation, if you say, hey, God told you to fire that person who disagreed with you, and that seems awfully convenient.
Then the system's immune system kicks in, the white blood cells come out, and this is where we have to get back to the Haven's work in this concept of the shadow print.
The shadow print. Okay, this sounds ominous, like something from a fantasy novel.
It is ominous, but in a very systemic, predictable way. In the soul print model, the shadow print isn't just bad stuff or sin in general.
What is it then?
It's defined as the echo without coherence. It's the distortions the system creates to protect itself from a reality it cannot integrate.
Okay, unpack that phrase for me. Echo without coherence.
Remember, a healthy soul print is a coherent pattern of mutual recognition. I see you, you see me, we grow together. It makes sense. The shadow print is what happens when the system encounters a piece of data it cannot metabolize.
Like a victim speaking up.
Exactly. Let's go back to our scenario. The victim speaks up and says, I was bullied. That is a piece of data.
A very inconvenient piece of data.
It's a piece of data that threatens the glittering image. It threatens the coherent loop of we are the special, loving, successful church. So the system cannot accept that data as it is. It can't integrate it.
So it has to process it through the shadow print and has to reframe it.
Yes. It has to twist it until it fits the narrative.
So I was bullied becomes, what does the shadow print turn it into?
It becomes they are bitter or they are unforgiving.
They have a rebellious spirit.
They have a rebellious spirit. Or, my personal favorite, they are projecting their own father issues onto the pastor.
They just couldn't handle the pace of the mission. I've heard that one a dozen times.
Exactly. Now, note what happens there. The reality of the victim's pain is not necessarily denied. Everyone can see that they are upset, but the meaning of that pain is completely inverted.
So the system says, yes, you're in pain, but it's your fault.
Precisely. The victim says, I am hurt because you abused me. The shadow print says, no, you are hurt because you are broken.
It's a distortion field, like a funhouse mirror.
And this is so crucial. This isn't just people being mean for the sake of it. It is a structural necessity.
What do you mean?
To keep the narcissistic coupling intact, to keep that closed loop of the leader and the crowd spinning and generating that intoxicating buzz, the victim must be reframed as the villain.
Why must?
Because if the victim is innocent, then the leader is flawed. If the leader is flawed, then the crowd is not special.
And the crowd cannot bear to not be special.
They cannot bear the void.
Yeah.
And this brings us right to the doorstep of Simone Weil.
Simone Weil, the French philosopher and mystic. I have to admit, when I tried to read Gravity and Grace, I felt like I was reading a foreign language. It is so dense.
It is. It's poetic and aphoristic.
But I love that we are bringing her into this because her concept of gravity just blows my mind every time I think about it.
It is one of the most powerful diagnostic tools for understanding human nature I've ever encountered. Weil says, All natural movements of the soul are controlled by laws analogous to those of physical gravity.
Analogous to physical gravity, meaning what goes up must come down, or something more.
Something more, meaning force exerts itself. It means that when we have a void inside us, a gap, a lack, a feeling of insecurity or emptiness, we instinctively try to fill it.
We grab,
we expand, we eat up the space around us to fill the hole in ourselves.
Can you give a non-church example? What does soul gravity look like in just regular life?
Sure. Think about when you're in a conversation and there's an awkward silence. What do? What's the impulse?
I talk. Immediately, I cannot stand silence. It makes my skin crawl.
That's gravity. The silence creates a void, a little bit of anxiety, and you rush to fill it with your voice. It's a natural reflex.
Okay.
Or think about when someone insults you. You feel a void of respect, of dignity. What is the immediate gut-level instinct?
To insult them back, to get even, to hit back harder.
To lower them so you feel high again. That is gravity. Weil argues that it is the most natural thing in the world to transfer our pain to others. If I suffer, I want you to suffer. If I feel empty, I want to consume your attention to fill myself up.
Wow. Okay, so how does this apply to the narcissistic leader?
The narcissistic leader has a massive internal void, a deep, terrifying emptiness. Maybe it's from childhood trauma, maybe it's just profound insecurity. It doesn't really matter. Gravity demands they fill it.
And how do they do that?
By expanding their ego until it fills the whole room. By consuming the attention, the admiration, and the agency of the entire congregation.
They use the people as filler material for the cracks in their own soul.
Exactly. And the congregation, in turn, uses the leader to fill their own void of meaning and their own need for certainty. It's a symbiotic gravity. Everyone is filling everyone else's voids with noise and activity and anointing.
It's a closed system of need.
It is. But then the victim appears.
The victim is a rupture in that system.
The victim creates a new void. They poke a hole in the fantasy. They stand up and say, this isn't perfect. There's real pain here. And that statement creates a vacuum of uncertainty. It creates moral anxiety in the whole group.
And nature abhors a vacuum.
The gravity kicks in. The entire system rushes to fill that hole.
Yeah.
And the fastest, most efficient way to fill the hole, to restore the feeling of peace and certainty, is to crush the thing that caused it.
So crushing the victim isn't a calculated evil plot. It's a reflex, like pulling your hand from a hot stove.
It is a gravitational reflex. Weil says to refrain from expanding is to act against nature. It takes a supernatural effort not to crush the person who exposes your emptiness. It's the hardest thing in the world.
And that refraining, that supernatural effort, that is what she calls grace, right?
Yes. For Weil, grace is the only force in the universe that can counteract gravity. And grace isn't just a theological concept of forgiveness. It's not a get-out-of-jail-free card.
What is it then?
Grace is the capacity to stop. It is the ability to bear a void without trying to fill it, to sit with the pain, to sit with the uncertainty, to sit with the accusation, without grasping for power or false narratives to patch it up.
That is profound, and it seems like the exact opposite of what we see in these power churches.
Completely.
These churches are all about expansion. Bigger buildings, louder music, more influence, more books, more campuses. We call it kingdom growth. But Weil might just call it gravity.
She absolutely would. And this is where we have to ask the really hard theological question. Is this just a psychological problem? Is this just bad leadership? Or are we actually worshiping the wrong God in these systems?
That's a heavy question, but I think someone like Jürgen Moltmann would say yes, absolutely.
He absolutely would. Moltmann wrote The Crucified God, and his central thesis is a direct challenge to this power God theology that dominates so much of the landscape.
The power God being the omnipotent CEO in the sky, the cosmic winner.
Right. Think about the God often projected by these narcissistic leaders. He is all-powerful. He is a winner. He dominates his enemies. He is successful. He creates big numbers and impressive results. He is, well, he looks a lot like the leader, just bigger.
He's a projection of the leader's ego. God is just me, but with thunderbolts.
Moltmann argues that this power God is an idol, a pagan deity dressed in Christian clothes. The Christian God, he says, is revealed primarily and most truly in the cross.
But wait, the church talks about the cross all the time. It's on the steeple. It's on the necklaces.
They talk about the cross as a transaction. Jesus died so I can go to heaven, a means to an end. But Moltmann is talking about the cross as the very definition of who God is.
What does he mean by that?
The cross is not a moment of domination. It is a moment of total helplessness,
Yeah.
of abandonment, of solidarity with the suffering. My God, why have you forsaken me? Moltmann argues that God reveals his true nature not by crushing the victim, but by becoming the victim.
So a church that instinctively crushes victims to protect its own image of success.
Acting in direct opposition to the crucified God.
Yeah.
They're worshiping power. They're worshiping gravity. They're trying to be the Romans in the story, not the Christ.
This connects back to Weil's idea of decreation, doesn't it? This is another term of hers that I struggle with. Decreation. It sounds like destruction.
It sounds negative, but it's the opposite. Weil had this beautiful mystical idea that for God to create the world, he had to withdraw. If God is everything everywhere all at once, there's no room for anything else to exist. So for creation to happen, God had to decreate part of himself, to pull back, to make a clearing so that we could exist.
God made space.
God made space. Think about a good parent. If you are a parent, you know this instinctively. If you do everything for your child, if you fill every silence, if you correct every mistake before they even make it, the child cannot grow.
They become a shell.
They do.
Yeah.
To be a good parent, you have to withdraw. You have to let them be. You have to let them fail.
You have to suffer the anxiety of watching them wobble on the bike and just not grab the handlebars.
Exactly. That is decreation. And for Weil, true love and true leadership is about making space. It is about withdrawal. It is about letting the other be in their full otherness.
And you contrast that with the narcissistic leader.
The narcissistic leader expands. They fill every corner of the room. They suck all the oxygen. They consume the other to sustain their own self. They cannot withdraw because if they withdraw, they have to face their own void. And that is terrifying.
So the antidote, the witness solution we've been talking about, is for leadership to be an act of decreation.
Yes. A healthy leader creates a clearing. They engage in what the Havens call recursive witnessing. They allow themselves to be changed by the congregation.
They don't just imprint on the people, they let the people imprint on them.
It's a two-way street. They listen. And I don't mean they have a listening session where they nod politely and then go do what they wanted to do anyway.
I've been in those meetings.
We all have. I mean, they actually let the feedback loop change them. They let the thermostat work.
They allow the we-e to emerge. They don't force the we-e to be a clone of the I.
That's it. That's the whole game.
This feels like the crux of the matter. We started by asking how a community of truth suppresses truth. And the answer seems to be because they are terrified of the void that truth creates.
Truth is disruptive. Truth creates a gap in our certainty. And if we are addicted to certainty, if we're addicted to the glittering image, we will kill the truth every time to save the image.
So let's bring this home for the listener. If I'm listening to this, and I'm sitting in a church or a workplace or even just a family, and I'm wondering, am I in a closed loop? Is this my reality? What should I look for? Give me a diagnostic tool.
Don't look at the production value. Don't look at the sermon quality or how eloquent the leader is. Don't even look at how nice the greeters are at the door.
Okay, what do I look for?
Look at the feedback loops.
Check the thermostat.
Check the thermostat. What happens when someone says, ouch? That is the ultimate test. When someone in the system says, this hurt me, does the system pause? Does it lean in with genuine curiosity? Does it allow that negative feedback to actually change the temperature in the room?
Or does it immediately attack the person who said ouch? Does it question their motives? Does it reframe their pain as a flaw in their character?
If the immediate gut reaction to pain is defense, you are in a narcissistic loop. If the reaction to uncertainty is a doubling down on dogma and certainty, you are in a gravity well.
And if I'm a leader, if I'm the one on the stage, or even just a dad or a mom trying to lead a family,
then you have the hardest work of all. You have to practice decreation. You have to constantly ask yourself, am I filling the room or am I creating a clearing?
am I using these people to mirror my glory back to me, or am I witnessing them so deeply that their reality is allowed to shape mine?
That's the question. And it takes so much courage. It feels so much safer to just be the boss.
It is safer, but it isn't alive. It's a dead system. Paul Tillich called it the courage to be. But it's a specific kind of courage. It's the courage to exist in the face of anxiety without grasping for false certainty. It's the courage to let the we emerge from vulnerability, not from domination.
It's the courage to be a witness, not a prosecutor, not a judge, a witness.
And I think we need to redefine what we mean by strong leadership. We so often think the strong leader is the one with the clearest vision and the loudest voice, the one who never shows doubt.
The one who knows the way and just drags us all along, whether we like it or not.
Right. But maybe the strongest leader is the one who can tolerate the most feedback, the one who can hold the most complexity without collapsing into simplistic black and white thinking.
The one who can look at a messy, painful situation and not try to fix it with a power move, but simply see it.
To pay attention. Simone Weil said, attention is the rarest and purest form of generosity.
And the Havens would add that it is the physics of the soul. Without that recursive attention, without that open loop, the soul of the system dies. It just becomes a machine, a loud, shiny, successful machine that grinds people up.
We said at the beginning that we wouldn't end on a note of condemnation, but of inquiry. We wanted to leave the listener with a question, and honestly, this conversation has left me with a lot of questions about my own life, about where I seek validation, where I shut down feedback.
Me too. This isn't just about them out there. Gravity affects us all. We all have voids. We all, on some level, want to be the center of the universe.
So the final thought, the final provocation.
The thought is this. The opposite of a narcissist isn't a doormat. It's not someone with low self-esteem.
What is it?
The opposite of a narcissist is a witness.
A witness. Someone who sees.
So here is the question for you, the listener. In your own circles of authority, whether you are the one in charge or the one in the pew or the one at the dinner table, what are you refusing to see?
Wow.
What piece of reality are you refusing to see? Because seeing it would cost you your certainty. Because seeing it would create a void you don't know how to fill.
That is the scary question. Because if we see it, we have to deal with it. And that's hard.
It's the hardest thing. But that is where the grace is. Grace doesn't happen in the fantasy, in the glittering image. Grace only functions in reality. You have to wake up from the dream to find the crucified God.
The most dangerous systems are not evil because they are cruel. They're evil because they no longer see.
That's the takeaway. Don't be cruel, of course. But more importantly, don't be blind.
Thank you for going on this dive with us. I know this is heavy stuff. It touches on our faith, our communities, our sense of safety.
It does.
But understanding these structures, seeing the loops, the gravity, the shadow prints, it gives us a language to navigate it. And maybe, just maybe, it stops us from becoming the acoustic tiling for someone else's ego.
And hopefully it gives us the tools to build something better, to build systems that can breathe, to build WEs that are big enough for the truth, even when the truth is painful.
As always, you can find the full list of sources, Havens, Weil, Bateson, DeGroat, Moltmann, in the show notes. These authors are worth your time. Don't just take our word for it.
Please don't.
Read them, wrestle with them.
Indeed. Read them. Let them witness you.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you in the next deep dive.